A chuck that's thrown ahead of time and let dry to leather hard, so it's relatively wet but not sticky, is also a good technique that I can use for trimming a vase that has a narrow top. Now I could balance this on its top and trim that way, but because it's got so much weight up here and so little down here, that's probably not my best bet. Trimming it in a chuck, in some sort of support, is a lot more useful, and I've made this chuck deep enough that my rim isn't sitting on the bat or on the wheel head. I can get myself centered, eyeball it, and then use a needle tool to trim myself close, get myself level. It's oftentimes hard to tell when you're right up close to it, and so I use this needle tool to just kind of mark. As I'm holding it above the wheel, it's only touching on this one side, and that tells me that this side is a little higher. So what I'm doing now is trying to shift it so that this side comes a little bit lower. Ideally, my chuck is centered and my chuck is level, so that I don't have to worry about things like the chuck influencing what I'm working on. Then I'm just going to use my hands to push this piece down so it's secure onto there. Also, I don't know if you know, you must notice in the video that there's a little bit of a indent here, a little hole here, and so I'm actually going to use some of my soft clay, soft trimmings that I have around here in the side of the bat, and I'm going to add them into this hole. I could also trim that away. This hole has happened in my instance because it was, because the clay was wedged, and sometimes in a spiral wedging pattern you get a little hole there. I'm going to just patch this. This isn't maybe you'd like to do it the first way around, but doing a little patch like this will be just fine. I'll score and slip both edges, and I have my slip across the room, so I'm going to add that slip on, and then I'll push this into here and smooth it away so that it looks nice and even. So I'm smoothing away the surface here. I'm using a rib to compress the clay into this little hole that I had there, and because I'm going to trim it afterwards, I'm going to get it nice and smooth, but the compression that I'm giving it with the rib should make it so that it doesn't end up, it won't show up later on. The compressing clay always pushes away air bubbles or differences in wetness or thickness of the clay. Because this is a cylinder, I'm going to trim away some of the extra clay on the bottom. I'm going to make it nice and smooth so that it won't cut into a table, so that it won't be heavy. Get a little bit of an undercut here so that the clay will have a shadow. Just makes it look nice when it's sitting on the table. But there's not a lot of stuff I have to do here. The bottom's going to stay flat. I'm not going to trim in a foot ring. Having an idea of how much thickness you have down here is a good idea. It's something that takes some practice, and when I take this off the wheel, I'll have to check my thickness and just kind of gauge so that I have a sense, was this piece a little on the thick side, or was it in good shape. I'm going to trim a little bit more here, and then I can actually see it in the video that I'm making, so I can tell that it's becoming a little more rounded than I actually intended it to be. I'd like a little bit more distinct shadow here. I can use a rib to make my edge smooth to take away those trimming lines. Some people prefer to leave them visible, and that's entirely up to you as the artist, as the designer of the work. And then I'm just going to make sure that this edge here is smooth. And when I'm ready to take it off the chuck, I should just be able to pop it off of there. And now you see what the piece looks like right side up. You can also see that the area where I've patched that, you can't tell, there's no way to see the difference there. You can see the evidence of trimming, but you can't see what I've removed there. So that piece is all done.